Right, welcome back to New Day. It's now time for our legal desk, and this morning we are looking at the issue of prenuptial agreements. Now, statistics from the Greater Accra Head Office of the Legal Aid suggest that at least 40% of marriages break up annually. Now, a prenup will offer couples the advantage of protecting their assets in the event of a divorce. However, it is seen as not an option for Ghanaians. Why is this? Anthony Jackson has this report.
Memories, all between father and child. I'm walking all on my own.
Till death do us part. Love conquers all. Words used to signify the hope of an eternal marriage. Nothing in life stays the same. A realization that sometimes dramatically dawns when you go from being single to being a better half of a wedded couple. Statistics on registered marriages for both customary and ordinance, compiled by the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, have revealed that over 19,154 marriages have been registered during the past 3 years. According to the report, 5,473 marriages were registered in 2010, while 6,616 were registered in 2011, and 7,666 in the year 2012. The number of marriages may be increasing, but one cannot ignore that divorce still exists, even in a culture such as ours which frowns on it. In 2010, 455 marriages were dissolved, and in 2011, 504 marriages suffered a breakdown. In 2012, however, 468 marriages could not hold together. A prenuptial agreement, commonly abbreviated to prenup, is a contract entered into prior to marriage by the people intending to marry. It includes the provisions for division of property and spousal support in the event of divorce or breakup of marriage. Prenups also require or mandate the husband or wife to state the amount of property that he or she would give out to his or her spouse if they should divorce. It may seem like a good deal to many Ghanaians with the intention to protect their assets, but a prenup is not recognized by the law of Ghana.
You know, one thing we must realize is that every law is grounded in the legal system, and every legal system is grounded in the socio-economics of the particular society or the country. And so if parties enter into an agreement, it is in their best interest that that agreement should follow the legal provisions that we have, because any agreement entered before marriage which seeks to govern the marital rights of each parties, but that agreement is inconsistent with the laws that we have, that agreement will be declared a nullity or null and void.
Cyril Delali Dogbe has been married for 6 months now. For him, if such a thing existed in Ghana, he wouldn't go for it as his culture frowns on it.
The way we've been brought up in Ghana, or probably in Africa, it's a society where we first are made to know that you can't predict the future. And also we practice a traditional system of marriage where a man could have more than a woman. Not that I wish to. It wouldn't work in our system.
One should bear in mind of the Supreme Court's ruling that in the case of a divorce, married couples should each get 50% of all assets acquired.
Right, very interesting story there by Anthony Jackson. And I'm thinking, here you are, freshly in love, probably planning your wedding, thinking about forever and happily ever after, until death do you part, and all those fairy tales and everything that comes with it. And then that discussion comes up, a prenup, how to walk away and divide your assets in the event of a divorce. How unromantic. I mean, in the face of such romance, you're in love and then you're thinking about what will happen when you divorce. I mean, for me, that is the most unromantic thing, and no man should come to me with a prenup.
I mean, the rights can be extinguished, and like divorce, I mean, the parties can go their separate ways. But the prenup, at least I'll go by the most acceptable legal dictionary, that is the Black's Law Dictionary, which defines it as an agreement made before marriage to resolve issues of support and property division if the marriage ends in divorce or by death of a spouse. So it is not only about how property acquired during marriage should be shared,
in the case of a divorce, but also in the case of
death of one of the parties.
Okay, so where do wills come in
very important
in this situation?
If under our Wills Act, every person, and even under the Constitution, every person, Article 18 will tell you that every person has the right to acquire property, and then also 22 will say that yes, you have the right to acquire property, but whether or not you make a will, your spouse cannot be denied of a reasonable share of your property. And Article 22 makes it very clear. So whether you make a will or not, your spouse, the surviving spouse, will be given a reasonable share of the property that is acquired. Even that one is not only about property acquired during marriage, the way I understand it. It is property
you acquired before the marriage,
or even by yourself.
Yeah, is this very popular in Ghana? Is this common in our courts, prenuptial agreements? And in your years of practice, have you come across, or have couples come to you as a lawyer to draft a prenup for them?
No, I haven't seen one. And
why is it not so popular with us?
Well, I think that it is the way we have envisaged the consequences of marriage, and it's the way we even see marriage. To be frank with you, in terms of customary law, of course, I mean, you'll be told that you, the woman, when you're going into the marriage, when there is indebtedness, the man will take care of your indebtedness. And when there are benefits, you bring them home in plain terms. So they don't even imagine that there will be any indebtedness for their daughter, usually in favor of the woman. As for us, the man is something else. So it is not really, I think it will be seen as an exception if ever a person would even go to a lawyer to say, draft a prenuptial agreement for me. I want to tell my future husband that any property acquired by me belongs to me. He should also keep his. We won't have joint account. In fact, years ago, it even related to whether or not they should have children, and whether or not the child should even have access to breast milk, because she wants to.
All this was contained in the
previously, yes, until recently it became more related to property sharing.
Right. Yeah. Do the courts in Ghana recognize prenuptial agreements?
Well, as we said, prenuptial agreement is just an agreement or a contract between two consenting adults, as we put it. So any such agreement, usually, generally speaking, should be recognized by law, and the court will usually not rewrite contracts for such two consenting adults, and we say they are compus mentis, with all their minds open and meeting of minds and all that.
Right. But
now they may not be able to enforce any contract that is against the laws of Ghana, and also public policy.
Right.
Is very important.
Okay, so in the face of spousal rights and also the landmark case of Mensa and Mensa, where would a prenuptial agreement stand?
Yes, the good thing is that even after Mensa and Mensa, then Kwatson and Kwatson came in 2013 as well, and then finally, 2012, and then Arthur and Arthur. In all these cases, the understanding I get from, and the principle that one can distill, is that where property is acquired during marriage, it is deemed to be property acquired by both parties. But the word acquisition is what has become controversial, even though these three judgments have tried to dispel it.
Doesn't matter who acquired the property?
It appears that it doesn't matter, but the contribution of the other person, or what is deemed to have been the co-acquisition process, is what worries some people. Because then, like Mensa said, in the case of the woman, for example, or the other spouse, if she provides what they call domestic congenial environment, takes care of the children, even includes taking care of the needs of the man or the other spouse.
So basically what it's saying is that the spouse shouldn't have necessarily contributed financially. They shouldn't have brought money, but if they maybe stayed at home and kept the home
cook for you,
clean, looked after the children, with of course, all of that, it means that she has contributed.
Yes, and therefore is entitled to 50%. But the exception that Arthur and Arthur has now provided is if the property is a gift to one of them,
then that remains a gift.
Yeah, and I have a very serious problem with that, because then that would be a recipe for people to diverting their own money
and saying somebody gave me a gift.
The father or mother to buy
present
property,
it to me,
and then present it and say, this is property acquired during marriage, but it was a gift from my dad. And I think it's a recipe for people to overreach the law.
Okay, so in the face of this these cases, where would a prenup stand?
Well, I think
Would
that
Mensa and Mensa, Arthur and Arthur, and Kwarteng override a prenuptial agreement which is in place?
yeah, but if two people before marriage say that whatever assets we acquire belong to the two of us, then it's in accord with Mensa and Mensa, and then.
No, but what if it's not in that if it's saying that you take just one house and I take 3 houses?
No, but
then it's not in line.
Yeah,
it's
but
not 50-50.
Well, you see, the problem is that with Mensa and Mensa in this line of cases, they've made it clear that it should be looked at on case-by-case basis. I remember there was a case where the lady, very wealthy woman, still wanted part of the property of the man, and the man said, well, my lord, she is wealthier, so I should get a portion of it. Then the lady, I understand, went home and never came back to the court. You understand? So but then I say that these rules, unfortunately, don't usually take into consideration.
I'm just trying to find out if a prenup will still stand in the face of these cases.
I'm saying that if it's contrary to the Mensa and Mensa principles, then it will not stand, because this is a Supreme Court decision until Parliament makes a law, which the Constitution mandates Parliament to make. But I understand there's a bill pending, and that is able to change and make prenuptial agreement supersede any other existing law. Then
so would you say then that it's still worth it to consider a prenup? Would you advise couples to have a prenuptial agreement?
Well, I think in my view, to be much ado about nothing, because the law has already provided the processes for us already. So there is no need, to my mind, just to engage in such because then at the beginning, people will see that as mistrust between the parties.
A lack of faith.
Yes.
I mean, you're just embarking on this whole new beautiful journey together, and all of a sudden we are talking about in the case of a divorce. How unromantic.
Yes,
anyway, hold that thought for a second. Now we'll go over to Amma now, and she has some messages for us from our social media platforms. Amma, what are people saying about prenuptial agreements?
One hot topic. Would you sign a prenup, Sandra?
It depends on who has the money. If I was the wealthier one, definitely I would.
Alright, so we're getting some social media messages. I'm starting with Twitter. Amos Kwashi says, we have not worked together, so upon what sharing are we going to agree? Alright, thank you for that, Amos. Also, Malik S. Arab says, if truly I love her, why will I even think of divorce? Okay, well, that's the point. Marriage is supposed to be for life. All right, then we have another message on Twitter from Wabuster DeYoung, who says, no, but only if she's greedy. So if she's greedy, but how will you know she's greedy? All right, I'll move on to some Facebook messages. In the Facebook messages, we have one here from the first one from Atta Jebi Patrick, and he says, I won't do that, because if the lady or the woman realizes that things will go in favor of her, she can even push for divorce, which at the end will go against you, the man. All right, thank you, Atta, for that one. Then we've got another one coming in from Doe Bright. Doe says, yes, I will, because this will give both spouses the chances to know their limit in order not to break boundaries. I guess he's agreeing that if given the chance, he will sign a prenup. And the last message here is from Haruna Zachariah, and Haruna says, I wouldn't like to sign any agreement with the lady per se, because ladies or women are not to be trusted. Oh, Haruna. All right, so there's the social media messages, some sample views on whether people would sign a prenup or not. So I will let you guys get back to your hot discussion.
Right, Haruna is a very interesting chap indeed. I don't know if he understands the issues here by saying that he won't sign any agreements whatsoever. Anyway, very interesting comments there. Right, but yeah, the way I look at it, I mean, come into the marriage with what you have, and when it breaks down, take what you brought in and leave. And if we acquired anything together, let's split it and go. Why does there have to be so much acrimony over property?
Because I think but that is indeed the true position of
exactly.
the law. Because the law in Ghana right now is only about property that has been acquired in the course of the marriage or during the subsistence of the marriage. That is what is deemed as property jointly acquired. And as you rightly said, it doesn't depend on even contribution in terms of cash financially by either party. But the point I was making is that it appears to me that most of these principles don't really have some input from customary law or practitioners of customary law. Because, and I make the point that it is more difficult for a man in Ghana, for example, to insist that he has a share in the property of a lady than it is for a woman. It is quite difficult. Yes, it is almost impossible. And I say that depending on.
So you're saying that it's the women who benefit more in these circumstances?
Well, in a number of cases, because I'm saying that it is not common for men to just because of.
Except if the woman is exceptionally wealthy. Yes, then there's no shame in going to ask for half of the property.
But I'm saying that you may not be able to be bold enough to even ask a judge.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about divorce itself. Now, we've been told that it's on the rise, it's on the increase. It's, in fact, the number one is the leading case in the courts now. Why is there so much divorce in the country at the moment?
Well, I mean, years ago it was stigmatic a bit, and then there's this particular provision that my good friend Justice Doche, and I love his judgment because he usually will start with a nice principle or phrase, which he quotes from Lord Denning, where he says, there is no longer any binding knot for marriage. There is only a loose piece of string which the parties can untie at will. Divorce is not a stigma anymore.
For Lord Denning to be saying that means it's the world over.
1954.
Wow.
He said it's 1954, and then Justice Doche says the above quotation can equally be said to be applicable to the Ghanaian society as well. This is a direct quotation from Mensah and Mensah. Now, what it means is that, and on Friday, a lot of the courts at Cocoa First Circuit Court do divorce on Friday. You will see quite a number of them. Courts are full, all based on divorce. First of all, previously people didn't know that you can go to court for customary marriage to be dissolved. Right. Now it is popular. People know that the law provides that it can be done even in the court.
Do you also think that maybe the issue of spousal rights is more, people are more aware of it now, especially now that people know that you can acquire half of the property in the marriage? Maybe before people were a bit skeptical to go for divorce because they knew they would walk away with nothing or not so much. So do you think that's also a reason why? Because now they know, hey, if I go, I'll get half.
That is a position held by people, even though there is no statistics. It appears that then people believe that it's also because, of course, when the divorce is granted, and I dare say that quite a number of them that I have observed, the petitioners are the women. I mean, it's the woman who has commenced the divorce proceedings. I said quite a number of those.
They are more confident now of walking away with something.
In part, I will not derogate it. In part, because there is no statistics. In part, also because now they will no more endure because of my children syndrome. They will rather then move on and take care of their children outside the matrimonial home. And now, as I said, is no more a stigma. And so and also women are now independent in terms of job. Right. I mean, previously when they were seen as housewives, and
they are more financially stable now to be confident enough.
Take care of
finally,
themselves.
we have also heard of post-nuptial agreements. What is that?
Oh well, I mean that after the marriage, the nuptial itself is just marriage. After the marriage, people can then say that, well, I think that my circumstances have changed, and it will not be fair that probably we will divorce today, and the property I have acquired with you, you go and marry, not you in particular, but then the wife will go and marry a younger person who is now coming to enjoy the sweat. My sweat.
So it's kind of like a prenup, but done after the marriage.
After the marriage. So what he's saying is that, look, it is only this particular, everybody should keep their property, and I say that thou shalt not mix. That is my principle for marriage. Thou shalt not mix. No bank account, no joint account.
That is your personal stance.
Oh yes, and I tell people that is the best.
No joint account. So you don't have a joint account with your wife?
I mean, what is that for? Everybody should keep their monies. Everybody should use it. But as a man, you should be able to maintain the family, and that makes you the man, and that makes you also enhances your right to other rights or access to other rights that come with you maintaining the family. Otherwise, everybody should keep their purse, their income.
So I think I can assume then that you do not have a prenup. You and your wife.
It's not necessary.
It's not necessary.
I say that.
But you're willing to part with half in the case of a divorce.
50-50. Well, that is if you haven't made other arrangements for it. You can acquire property in the name of your children, and then you avoid.
Or it could be a gift. Most of your property could be gifts to you.
Or it could have been.
Right now, finally, before we go out, would we then now say that the principles of Mensah and Mensah in later cases have kind of extinguished prenups?
I'm saying that unless the prenup is inconsistent with the principles under Mensa and Mensa and also public policy, then it is only a gloss. Right. I mean, it only confirms, if it confirms that all property that are brought in belongs to our individual acquisitions, but those acquired during marriage belongs to the two of us, then there's no problem. Okay. And prenup cannot be said to have been extinguished.
We are out of time. Many thanks to my guest this morning, Yao Pong, who's a lawyer. He's been talking to us about prenuptials, and all I can say is thank God for Mensa and Mensa in the later cases. All right.